Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are doing a very exciting video, which is my best books of the year for 2024. Out of everything that I read last year, what were the best things? I feel like I had a bit of a weird reading year, although I kind of feel like I say that every year, so do I have a typical reading year? Maybe not. But I also, when I was, making this list of my top 5 reads of the year, I was a little surprised by some of them. Like, some of them very much make sense for me, but some of them, are from genres that are a much smaller portion of my reading. So it was surprising to me that they made it onto my top 5 list, but maybe, a weird reading year makes for a surprising top 5 list. Who knows? But let's just get into it. I'm not going to be ranking these in terms of like most favorite to least favorite. I'm just going to be going in the order that I read them. So let's start with ICARUS by K. Ankrum. This is a YA contemporary that is following a boy whose father is an art forger and an art thief. He has roped his son Icarus into art thievery, and they only steal art from one specific man in their town named Mr. Black, which as the story goes on, we kind of get to find out more about why his father has this vendetta against this one man. But Icarus lives a very lonely life because he can't really let anyone get close to him because they might find out about his father's forgery and thievery. But one day when he is in Mr. Black's house scoping out a piece of art to steal, he is caught by Mr. Black's son, who Icarus didn't know existed. And instead of turning him in, the two of them become friends and maybe more, as they are both these intensely lonely people searching for connection. I loved this. I love K. Ankrum. I am realizing that I should probably consider her a favorite author because I just love almost everything that she writes. Most of her books are at least 4 stars, if not 5. This was a 5-star for me. It really just swept me away. I love the way that she writes. It's the kind of book that I like. Her writing just propels me forward. I always read her books so fast I can't put them down. She writes in these like vignettes of heightened emotion for the characters in a way that is just so compelling and propulsive to read. She always incorporates, found family in her stories, and they're always about teens who are kind of desperate for something. And I think in this case, these characters are desperate for connection. So I absolutely adored this book. I do have a full review for this, which I will link in the description, but this is the first of my top 5 reads of the year. Next up is a book that I listened to as an audiobook, which is another surprise for me, which was Only and Forever by Chloe Leese. This is the last book in the Bergman Brothers series, which is a contemporary romance series. It is always a surprise to me when a contemporary romance makes it onto my reading, because I don't really read that much of that genre, but I loved this whole series, but this last book was truly my favorite of the entire series. I binged everything in the series other than the first book, because I had read the first book a couple years ago, but I binged the rest of the series at a point in the year where I was really in a reading slump, struggling to like find anything that could keep my interest. And I just decided to give this series another shot, and I loved it. It is about the Bergman family. There are 7 siblings, I think, and each sibling gets their own book, their own romance, and it is one of those series that like I enjoyed pretty much every book in this series. There are certainly some that I liked more than others, but also the series as a whole I think is greater than the sum of its parts, because as you go, you get to know each of these characters, and it just continues to build out this family and how well you know them. The characters are so endearing. The books all include some kind of representation for either neurodivergence or disabilities, and I always really appreciate seeing those represented in contemporary romances. And yeah, I love the Bergman family and getting to see all of these characters and how much they all love each other and they're all so supportive of each other. But this last book in the series was truly my favorite. I love the main character Vigo so much, and I really love the love interest in this as well. There are parts of each of these characters that like little pieces of each one that I could relate to, and I don't know, this was the one that really just like hit me the best. But truly I loved the entire series. Next up is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. This is one that was a surprise to me because it kind of came out of nowhere. I hadn't really heard about it until it was like right about when it was published, and I heard about it online, didn't really see any reviews of it, but I went out, bought it, read it immediately, and just had such a good time with it that it really just took me by surprise. And this is YA horror, which is not really something I read a lot of. So another just surprise upon surprise. This is truly like a year of surprises. There were so many different books that were surprises to me. I talked a little bit more about some of the various surprises that I had in my reading and review, which I'll link in the description also if you want to see a list of all the things that surprised me in my reading this year. But Don't Let the Forest In is following our main character Andrew, who's part of a little trio of friends that includes his twin sister Dove and his best friend Thomas. This book starts at the beginning of a new semester at this boarding school that they all go to. And we know that like something happened in the last semester, but we don't totally know what's been going on. But Dove and Thomas have had some kind of falling out and are not talking to each other. Andrew is feeling tension because his sister and best friend had this falling out. He also is feeling some tension because he is realizing that he may have feelings for his best friend Thomas, and to add to that, he also is realizing that he is probably asexual, and so that complicates his feelings around potentially having a crush on his friend. Then, in addition to those interpersonal complications, suddenly there are monsters in the woods outside of their school. These monsters are coming from Thomas's drawings, which are inspired by Andrew's stories. So Andrew writes short story horror, and then Thomas draws the monsters. But these monsters are now coming to life and attacking the school, and Andrew finds out that Thomas has been going out into the forest every night and fighting the monsters. So now, in addition to everything else, they have to figure out why are these monsters appearing and how do they stop them. This was another one that I just like ate up so fast. I got this book, essentially read half the book in one day, and which isn't normally how I read books. I usually tend to kind of chip away at them a little more slowly, but it has this very addictive quality to it that I really loved. The intensity of the like teen angst and emotions in this was really fun. It didn't feel like, it was very dramatic, but it didn't feel like annoyingly melodramatic. It just felt like this larger atmosphere of drama. I think they had, foresty body horror in it, which was very fun. And for me, it was a good amount of horror, also balanced with like the character and relationship aspect. So it really like kept me hooked, both like emotionally and with the like foresty body horror elements of it. So this is one that it just was so much fun and I enjoyed it so much, and I'm definitely going to be reading more things from this author. So those were my three like surprises that were on my top 5. The next ones maybe make a little more sense, but first up we have Morgan Is My Name by Sophie Keach. This is the first book in a trilogy. There's an Arthurian retelling told from the perspective of Morgan Le Fay. It is really her origin story. This first book follows her from childhood up to young adulthood, and it is really telling the story from her perspective, understanding all of the pressures that have been on her, the injustices that she has suffered, the ways that she has been controlled and manipulated and prevented from being herself, from doing the things that she wants to do. As a character, I really enjoyed her. She is so smart and so curious and just has this huge appetite for learning. She wants to learn more about healing and how to help people, and especially about women's health. But all of those things are considered, you know, not appropriate for a princess. So she is blocked first by her stepfather, Uther Pendragon, and then later by her husband, and you can just see the like feminine rage building within her, which will eventually, I assume, turn into some of the acts that we know are associated with Morgan Le Fay. But this first book I just loved so much. I loved Sophie Keach's writing. I loved the way that she created Morgan's character. She is this very like headstrong, strong-willed, stubborn, and intelligent character, but not in a way that feels like she's being stubborn just to be stubborn, or in a like, you can't tell me what to do kind of way, or in a way that makes her stupid. It all made sense, and it all stemmed from the ways in which like she's so intelligent, but she is being like controlled so much, and you can see how she like pushes back against that, and she suffers a lot of consequences for doing that. I had such a good time reading this. I am so looking forward to the rest of the series. I have the second book. The third book is supposed to come out later this year, and I'm just so excited about this. And last but not least is the completion of a series, which is the GAEL Song Trilogy by Shauna Lawless. So I read both Words of Kings and Prophets and The Land of the Living and the Dead, as well as the two novellas, Dreams of Fire and Dreams of Sorrow. All of these were fantastic. Another surprise for me, because I was kind of lukewarm about the first book, but I was encouraged to continue on with the series, and I'm really glad that I did, because I ended up loving these. This is historical fantasy set, or it begins in 10th century Ireland, I believe, while the Vikings are, you know, in Ireland and in Dublin. And we are following two female characters who are each from different like ancient magical races, who have been in a centuries-long war, killing each other. Both of them, their people, their numbers are dwindling because of this war. And they are wildly different characters, a huge contrast in the perspectives that we are following. We have one who is absolutely ruthless in her pursuit of power and control for herself and her family. The other is a healer who is very trusting and compassionate, and starts out very naive and sheltered, but then learns how she has actually been intentionally sheltered and manipulated, and she really comes into her own over the course of the series in a very satisfying character arc. I had such a fantastic time reading this. I loved the characters in this. There are some really lovable characters and some truly hateable characters that you are just rooting for their downfall. The conclusion to this was very satisfying. The second book was really my favorite in the series, because this is the one that really, like, after being kind of meh about the first one, this one really like swept me away, and I was like, oh my god, obsessed. I have to binge this entire thing. But the ending of the series was also very, very good, very satisfying. A lot of characters, you know, getting their comeuppance, and it was just fantastic, and I'm so excited to read more from this author. This is a completed series, but she is going to be starting a new trilogy that's kind of next generation after this. So this does complete the story arc, but it also sets up sets us up for like the next generation and a new series. So that is very exciting. So those are my favorite books of 2025. I would love to know if you've read any of these. Did you also love any of them? Or what was your favorite book that you read in 2024? Did I say best books of 2025? I meant best books of 2024. This time of year, I'm always so confused. Anyways, I would love to know what was one of your favorite books that you read in 2024. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.